Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our audience across the world. This is your host, Sid, and welcome back to the Sit Down with Sid podcast. For most of the world, Flight MH370 is a headline, a mystery, or a piece of unsolved history. But for my guest today, it is the story of her mother who never came home. In early 2014, our guest was a law student whose life was changed forever when Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished. In the decades since, she has become one of the most powerful voices in the global aviation, a founding member of Voice 370 and the face of Search On campaign. Today's conversation comes at a pivotal moment. As we record this in early January of this year, the world's eyes are back on the southern Indian Ocean. Just 1 week ago, on December the 30th, the vessel Armada 8605 resumed the search in a refined zone, reigniting a quest for truth that many thought was over. Our guest joins us to talk about the frozen nature of grief, the fight for transparency, and what it is like to wait for a phone call that has been nearly 12 years in the making. Just a quick note to our viewers. Our guest is here today to share her personal journey and advocacy. Her views are her own, and for those looking for the technical findings of the investigation, we encourage you to refer to the official reports from the ICAO and the Ministry of Transport in Malaysia. Grace Nathan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. How are you doing, first of all, Grace?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Okay, so just a quick recap. On March 8th, 2014, flight MH370 carrying 239 people with 227 passengers and 12 crew members was on a route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The plane took off at 12:41 a.m. local time in Malaysia. At around 1:21 a.m., the captain's final voice communication was "Good night, Malaysian 370." Shortly after that, the transponder was turned off and the aircraft vanished from the secondary radar. And since then, your life has never been the same. Can you share a favorite memory of your mother and Daisy and how that last phone call before she boarded this flight affects you today?
I don't think there's one single favorite memory. I don't think it works that way. So I think it's just a collection of memories or just remembering her presence, remembering how she used to laugh, remembering the food she liked. So it's always peppered around. And, I would walk into a mall and I'll just remember, "Oh, my mom used to like eating that." Or I still keep a lot of her clothes and I come across them once in a while when I'm looking for something to wear. So it's such a big collection of memories and not really one particular event or moment or memory that stands out really from the rest. I used to speak to my mom every single day when I was studying in the UK. Our relationship actually grew a lot closer once I had gone abroad to study. I had been abroad about maybe 3 years at the time when MH370 went missing. And the last conversation we had, she was getting ready, getting dressed, getting ready to go to the airport, and she was really happy because she was on her way to go visit my dad, who was working in Beijing at the time. So it was just a very ordinary conversation. And before she hung up, she said, "I love you," which was quite odd because in our family, we weren't very expressive that way. We never really said "I love you" unless it was in a greeting card or for a special occasion or something like that. So that sort of took me off guard, but I did respond. I did say "I love you" too. And little did I know that that would be the last conversation we would have.
But so yes, I did come across that you were studying in Britain and in the UK. And like, what was your initial reaction like when your dad called you? Uh, was it like hard to apprehend like what's going on?
It's difficult to sort of classify because nobody knew what was happening in like the early days, months, maybe even like up to a year. So at the time, like in the early hours or at the time when I received the phone call from my dad, it was right after the plane was meant to land in Beijing.
Hmm.
Nobody knew at the time that the plane was actually still airborne, even beyond the time it was meant to land. And there were so many rumors. Nobody knew whether the plane had made an emergency landing somewhere. Nobody knew if it had been hijacked. There didn't appear to be any signs of any plane crash in the ocean between Malaysia and China, because the southern Chinese Ocean, the South China Sea, isn't very deep. It's quite shallow, and debris should have been visible. And
Hmm.
there were reports of like the Navy going into the ocean, and a lot of the initial search was focused in the region between Malaysia and China and did not reveal any evidence. So in those first few hours, days, weeks, and months, like it was just a very confusing time because nobody knew what had happened.
Well, uh, uh, I'm going to just share this with our audience, if I have your permission, please. The picture of your family. This is your family. This is yourself with your dad, your mom, and your younger sister. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
Yes.
uh, let me know. Can you see this screen as well?
Mhm.
Um, so this is a very beautiful photo, and it says, as you said, your mom was the person in our family that held us all together. She was the person who was a constant in my life. She was always there for me. My sister, our dreams were always her dreams. And I mean, this is you know, it's very like it has even touched my heart personally on a personal level because uh, not knowing what happened, not having a closure is very tough, you know. Um, so let me ask, over this last past decade, you have achieved so much. You've graduated law schools, you have started a family, you have built a successful career, yet you say part of you remains frozen in time. How has that shaped your daily life and your resolve to keep advocating for truth and justice?
It's been really difficult to have to have to live like two sort of parallel lives, while a lot of people view my advocacy or my my fight for the search of MH370 to continue as a negative feature that I have, that they think that
Hmm.
I have difficulty moving on, that I need to let go and move on. But at the same time, I think like what they fail to see is that like I do have continued living my life. And that doesn't mean that haven't been able to move along with my life and continue to do the things that I was meant to do or supposed to do. But at the same time, it's been difficult for me to move on, as people would put it, from something that hasn't been resolved. I find it difficult to accept when people tell me, oh, you should just forget about your mother and move on. I said, to me, it's not something that you forget about and move on from, because there hasn't been any resolution. I've also lost other loved ones in the last 10 years since the plane went missing. My grandmother, for example, who was also my primary caregiver when I was growing up. And she was like a second mother to me. I was very close to her. In fact, at many stages of my life, I was closer to her than I was to my own mother. And I lost her the same year that MH370 went missing. And grieving or moving on from that has been a very different journey than it's been with the missing MH370.
Wow. You've often said that the Search On campaign is a daughter's promise and has kept your hope alive through years of setbacks. What has been the biggest challenge for you in sustaining public and the government pressure, or any specific thought or memory of your mother that keeps you going even 12 years later?
For me, keeping me going isn't too difficult, because for me, it's that my mom was my entire life up to that point, or like from the time I was born. My mom has always done everything that she could for me. I think that's most mothers, they do everything that they can for their children. They sacrifice a lot for their children. And that was many, many more years than just 12 years, more than 20 years. So for me, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, now 10 years, 12 years into it, I still feel like, well, my mom did it for me for much longer. But what's my excuse? She took care of me, raised me, gave up a lot of things for me. And now I'm just giving up. I'm still just fighting for her, fighting for the cause. But in the beginning, in the maybe the first 3 or 4 years, it was a lot to do with that my how I felt about the whole situation. A lot of disappointment, a lot of because the story kept changing, a lot of disappointment in how the Malaysian government was handling the situation, and a lot of it was fueled by just I think anger, disappointment, confusion, a lot of emotions. But as the emotions sort of faded over the years, the sole purpose that keeps me going now, the driving purpose that keeps me going now is really that we need to find the plane because it just cannot be that in this day and age with how advanced technology is that we're willing to sit here and accept that a plane can go basically vanish into thin air. That is not a conclusion that anybody should want to accept because thousands and thousands of people take to the skies every single day. The number increases, I think, every day. The number of people that are flying now than the number of people that flew 12 years ago is exponentially higher. And it cannot be that one day a plane will take off and just never arrive at its destination and nobody knows what's happened to it. And how is that a conclusion anybody or anywhere is willing to accept? Until today, even if they say that they believe the plane is in the southern Indian Ocean, and I'm happy to follow that narrative because that's the only narrative supported by evidence, but
Hmm.
we still don't know how it got there. And that's also unacceptable in this day and age. How do we prevent something like this from happening again if we don't know what caused it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because planes go up, planes go down, but they don't vanish except when they do, which is in
Yeah.
case of flight MH370. And so I want to share this with our audience as well. And let me share the screen with our audience. Okay, so this is the route map of the flight. It took off at 12:41, as I mentioned, from Kuala Lumpur. It was en route to Beijing at 1:19 p.m. That's when the captain said, "Good night, Malaysia 370." After that, it took a turn towards the west, and the last frequency, which was picked up by the military radar, which was 370 kilometers from Penang Island, was at 2:22 a.m. in the morning. Now, um, after this, no one knows what happened. You know, they have been searching. I can share this with you. This is the search area that was carried on from 2014 to 2015. And as you can see, they are predominantly looking mostly on the southern tip of the ocean. It shows the range and everything. And till date, once again, yes, some debris was found, which we will get into it, which I will also share with you and the audience and ask for your feedback. But it is literally one of the most unsolved aviation mysteries ever, and uh, people are hopeful, people like yourself, investigative experts are hopeful that this time with the new search, which was resumed a week ago, might bring the results and the answers all the family members are looking for. Uh, that being said, what inspired you and the other next of kin to found Voice 370, and how has the group evolved from a support network into one of the most powerful global voice for truth and justice in case of MS370?
In the early days of when this happened, I came back to Malaysia, but I was only here for maybe a week or two, and then I went back to England to resume my final exams and complete my education. And during that time, I think the Malaysian government still had the family members coming to to a hotel for briefings and updates, and the whole MH370 saga was being covered 24 hours by the media. And during that time, I think the family association from the German wings crash had tried to reach out to to us collectively and
Hmm.
advised us to start an association, a support group, and a group that would act as a voice, who would speak as a voice, and that sort of thing. And that is how Voice 370 came about. I actually wasn't really very involved in the formation of Voice 370, but I've been actively involved in Voice 370 since a few months after I think that it was established because I was back in Malaysia after I
Hmm.
completed my studies. And then I started speaking at press conferences and just sort of became dubbed the spokesperson for Voice 370. It was not that I was appointed as the spokesperson or elected, it wasn't anything like that. It just sort of came on its own.
Hmm. Um, what year did you move back from England to Malaysia?
I moved back from England to Malaysia in December 2014.
Oh, the same year. Okay, when the
Yeah.
plane went missing. Okay, and I came across a lot of reading about yourself. The first couple of years were really tough on you. You were suffering from depression. You were going to work, not knowing which floor your office was on. How did you overcome that? I mean, that's I don't have any words to express. You know. But how did you overcome that? And how was the whole process where you found a little bit of sanity and a little bit of peace in your mind so you can at least come out of that negative element of your life and be as successful as you are today?
Well, I think what happened to me was that I never grieved. Like immediately after this happened, I didn't have time to process it. My dad encouraged me to go back and finish my exams. I was also very conscious of the fact that we had gone from a double income family to a single income family. My sister was still like halfway through her education and due to go abroad, and me deferring a year of my education or postponing it when I was so close to the end, I was already at the final stage, the final exams. So I decided to go back and like take my exams. So I went, like I left Malaysia on a Friday or Saturday and took my
Hmm.
next paper on a Monday. I completed all my exams, graduated at the top of my class. So I really pushed myself during that period, even though it was really difficult for me. Came back, I started work within like a few days of coming back to Malaysia. And I think it was sometime during that following year in 2015 that like my whole system internally just couldn't take it anymore and sort of crashed. And probably from pushing myself too hard. I was also very involved in like activism and advocacy for MH370, especially in that first year after the plane
Hmm.
disappeared, was when I guess the interest was at its highest. And so that really, I think, drained me, and I had pushed myself to limits that I shouldn't have pushed myself to. And I then in 2015, 2016, I took a bit of a break from work and I
Hmm.
focused completely on just the MH370 advocacy because I just felt that I needed to do it. And that was the year we traveled to Australia, to Africa to raise awareness about looking for debris. I did as much as I could in that year, and then I resumed work after that, and at that point, I was completely ready to focus 100% on work. I still did my advocacy and I still maintained the role as a spokesperson for MH370, but I really put myself right back at work 100%. And I didn't feel I was, and from then on, like in terms of my career, it's really just taken off exponentially. And so I've managed, I think I needed to take that little break in between and reset. And then I was okay after that. Like I had just regained some sort of balance.
Hmm. And was it your dad and your sister along with you who traveled to Australia, Africa? Did they accompany you on these travels to raise awareness?
Right before I came back from England, my sister had gone to resume her studies in England. She's still there. She's never really come back home to Malaysia. So she comes back for like holidays, but she's settled down there now.
Hmm.
My dad and I, along with a few other next of kin, were the ones. There's a core group of us, and we were the ones that traveled, did all the traveling that year
Hmm. And
and
how did you,
campaigned.
okay, and how did you handle the press conference at a such young age, just graduated from a college uh, with the top honors and dealing with the media coverage? I mean, it can be overwhelming and draining as well.
Yeah, I think like that was part of the reason why I suffered a burnout at the end of 2015. It was because I just couldn't say no. I just wanted to do as much as I could. I wanted to leave no stone unturned. I tend to be like that in life. I tend to always give 110% to anything that I set my mind to. But it had been quite difficult because I would sometimes do interviews throughout the night, depending on the time zone that the request was coming from, and
Hmm.
not sleep for days in a row, sometimes go a couple of weeks with barely any sleep, not eating properly. So it was tough, but I think that I was just very determined and very motivated to make sure that I did my best for the person that mattered most to me in the world, and that just kept me going.
Hmm. And this is a personal question. Just talking about this, for example, we reached out to you, accepted the invite. Does it somehow bring the negative feeling again that I have to go through this again, or are you over that part and your mindset is now, let me just get the answers from the authorities?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? I think I lost the beginning part of the question.
Sure. So my question is, this is a personal question from my side. When you accept interview requests like you did ours, does it bring any kind of negative resentment, negative emotion or feelings? Like, you're going back a decade back and you're trying to scratch those wounds again that have started to heal. How does that feel to you?
It's become increasingly difficult as the years go on to keep having to like revisit everything that happened 12 years ago, especially because it's becoming further and further away from it. But the interview questions are always the same or run around the same themes or topics or threads. So I do have a lot of in the beginning I didn't feel it as much, but I do feel it a lot more now. It's also probably because I have a lot more on my plate and I don't have the mental capacity to dwell on a lot of these things because I now have a family, I have children, I run my own practice. So my plate is really very much more full than it was when I was in my early 20s and didn't really have anything except my job and this to think about. But now I have a lot more things to think about. So it is quite difficult. And like, for example, I was awake at like 5 or 6 this morning and I was already thinking like, oh my goodness, I have to go through all of this again. And like, it's a little bit of like I have to really like push myself to do it these days.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry if you felt that way and if you still feel that way. But on the other side, I'm very thankful that you're here to share your journey. Uh, because no one can explain what you went through or what you go through on a daily basis than yourself. So thank you so much. Now, as a successful, I want to talk about the investigation part, uh, which has been not up to par. A lot of disappointment, anger, rage from families of the people who were on these flights. As a successful criminal attorney yourself, how do you view the investigation so far, especially around the transparency with data like military radar, and what specific changes would you like to see in how government handles the aviation mysteries like this, if it ever happens?
I think it's a bit tricky because a lot of the times with things to do with aviation or security, a lot of it will boil down to national security, which is very tightly guarded by any government, really. So I think with what happened in Malaysia is they should have been a little bit more transparent from the very early stages because a lot of time and resources were wasted searching the wrong area, especially if they knew that the plane had already turned around and, crossed back across the peninsula of Malaysia and flew, outwards towards Australia. I mean, if they knew that information within the first, say, 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever the case may be, then that information should have been shared, even if not publicly. It should have been shared with like the relevant government authorities, international authorities, so that time and resources could have been turned and focused into the right place at the right time in the right direction because we don't know how much has been lost in the few weeks it took for that information to come to light.
Yeah. Uh,
Like, I mean, there may have been like a debris field or something still visible to a satellite if like we had looked there within the first few hours, for example.
well, I don't know. Do you feel like they don't even know what has happened, or this is
To be honest,
because,
I don't think anybody knows what has happened. But I think the issue is more about how information should have been provided more transparently as soon as it became available rather than the information trickling out in bits and pieces over the course of weeks and months. Things like the Inmarsat data couldn't have come out any sooner, potentially because it just took that long to figure out the data, to try and interpret the data. But data about where the plane was, at which point it had flown across Malaysia again, I think data like that, which they would have had access to or would have been privy to almost immediately, should have been revealed.
okay. The reason I brought that up was I don't know how familiar you are with the independent investigative journalists who are handling this case. To name a few, I had the privilege of having Jeff Wise on our show. and he's a renowned voice in terms of the investigative efforts towards MH370. And his episode will be premiered on January the 20th, 11 days after yours. Um, there were theories like it's a pilot suicide, it's a mass murder, uh, then the claims of hijacking, data spoofing, Russians hijacked it, etc., etc. Did you pay attention, or that was something you were not aware of and you were just focused on what the authorities were telling you?
I mean, all of these conspiracy theories or the theories that there were a lot of theories floating around. And of course, the theories from Jeff Wise and Florence Deschanger and were a little bit more prominent than others. Some
Hmm.
basically had got more mileage because of who they were or the following that they already had prior to MH370. And everybody loves a good conspiracy theory, I guess, like if you're just looking for something to think about, watch. But it was horrible for us, the next of kin, because it would put us through the ringer. We would get lots of calls from people, lots of inquiries about, oh, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? But for a lot of us, not just me, but for most of us, we just wanted it to be supported by evidence. And
Hmm.
currently, the official narrative is the only narrative that is supported by any evidence. And multiple sources of evidence which are not interlinked to one another, like the Inmarsat data, debris. A lot of the theories, these conspiracy theorists, as I call them, will say that the debris was planted, that the immersed data is not real. But I mean, that's all we have, and that's physical evidence. And I've seen the evidence myself. And whereas with their theories, there is no evidence other than what they say they have found or sources they have spoken to, unnamed sources, sources that cannot be tested. So for me, with or without my legal background,
Hmm.
besides the fact that I work as a litigation attorney, for me, I just the only narrative I'm willing to stand by is the official narrative because that's the only narrative supported by evidence. So I don't entertain anything else and I don't delve on it, but I am aware that these theories exist and that a lot of people believe them.
Yeah. So talking about the debris, I want to share this. These are the key pieces of debris that was found. So this is the plane's right wing, the flaperon that was found in July of 2015 on Reunion Island in France. Then they found the left outboard flap trailing edge, which was found in Mauritius. Then they found the right outboard flap, which was found in Tanzania. And then they had the flap track fairing, which was found in Mozambique, and the couple of pieces over there. And then this was found, the engine nose cowling segment was found in South Africa. So another piece in Mauritius. Uh, how credible are these? I know that the investigative authorities, such as Malaysia authorities, Australian authorities, they confirmed that this debris, the part of this debris, belongs to MH370. Are you convinced if that is the case?
I mean, I trust that the authorities have no reason, especially the Australian authorities, have no reason to fabricate those that kind of information. Like why? Well, what purpose would it serve? It hasn't answered any of the questions we have anyway. They've just said that piece of debris has the registration number or the code that matches a Boeing 777 or has been
Mhm.
confirmed from MH370. Like there's so many pieces of debris with various degrees of certainty. Some are confirmed from MH370, some are highly likely from MH370. And if it is, it is. I mean, like I really just want to know what happened. And whatever gets us closer to getting those answers, then that's what I want.
Hmm. I find it very interesting because the debris was scattered in so many different parts, Reunion Island in France, all the way to South Africa to Tanzania. I mean, of course, the drift of the water can carry the debris, but they did extensive search from 2014 till 17 and then 2018, covering almost 120,000 square kilometers. But still, they could not find the other debris. So, uh, me as an outsider, as a common man, I find it very odd to put two plus two here. So that's why I brought this question up, asking you how credible you thought these answers were from them. Um, okay, now a few more questions before we wrap this up. I know we are just a week into the renewed search by Ocean Infinity, the no find, no fee. How does the energy of this mission feels to you compared to the past initial searches of, as I mentioned, from 2014 till 2018?
I think globally, maybe the energy is definitely a lot lower than it was 10, 12 years ago. A lot of people have definitely moved on from it. I think some of the newer, younger generation, like they were too young when this happened for them to even know what it's about now. But for us, I think for us, of course, the next of kin, we are, of course, so like feeling very hopeful that at least we have a search that has resumed. We hope that the search will be successful because only if the plane is found can all of these answers be put to rest, all of these questions be put to rest, all of the speculation, including oh, why was the debris scattered? Yes, ocean currents can carry, but we must also remember that the search there officially, even when it started back in 2014, 2015, started many months after the plane originally disappeared. And we don't know what happened, in what way the plane landed, ended its flight. We don't know. We don't know how the debris was scattered. We don't know where the debris fields went. We don't know how many pieces have been lost because people were not actively looking for these pieces of debris. Whatever
Hmm.
was found by chance. We had Blaine who went out looking for them. He found a few. Nobody else was looking up to when he went looking for it.
Hmm.
And some
Um,
very good pieces have been recovered, of course, because they were huge. They were really, really big.
right.
But many pieces may have just been lost.
So did they bring back those debris to Malaysia so the families could actually witness them in person?
Yeah, I viewed them in Australia when I traveled there, and a
Okay.
lot of the pieces are back here. The very big ones are back here, and we do display them at the events that we host once a year. We host a remembrance event usually once a year, and we do display them for the public to come and interact with.
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, I know there were these stories that it was a mass suicide, the pilots, once again, a conspiracy, no evidence. Looking back, did any of the family members or yourself, including yourself, had that anger towards the pilot and the co-pilot if that was would be the case? This is just a hypothetical question.
Yeah, from the very beginning though, we have been, I myself anyway, have been very clear that like unless we know what happened, there's nobody to blame. We really don't know what happened. Was it like a technical malfunction? Was there somebody else on board? Was it really the pilot? We don't know. So I had harbored no feelings or ill intentions or anger towards any specific party.
Hmm. Uh, Now, looking ahead, whether this search yields any answers or not, how do you envision the future of uh, the Voice 370 and the family's quest? Is there a point where the closure might come, even if the answers remain elusive?
I don't know if we'll ever attain full closure unless we know what happened to the plane. So, for example, even if they do find the debris field, great, it'll confirm that the plane is there. But at
Hmm.
the same time, like if I mean, we don't know whether they will recover the black box. We don't know whether if they do recover the black box, whether the information will there'll be any information in there or whether the information can be extracted, still useful. And I mean, we don't know the answers. Even if they do find the plane, we may never have the answers that we are looking for. We may never know why this happened or what caused it to happen. We may never know. It's just something that I think that we'll have to live with. So I don't know. I think if we do get the answers, then I can start processing the grief and work towards getting closure. But I think until then, it is just a fragmented journey.
Hmm. Final question for you. After more than a decade of roller coaster emotions, hope, frustration, looking for answers, um, what message would you want to send to listeners who may feel the world has moved on, but maybe the families have not?
I think that grief or processing grief is just different for everybody. Nobody will process a loss or grief in the same way. Like for me, for example, I have never referred to my mother in the past tense. I still don't. When I speak to people, I refer to my parents in the plural, and I like if people don't know me or don't know what has happened, they don't assume that I don't have my mother with me anymore. So it's just some of these things are very complex, and people will process it in their own time and in their own way. And I think to each their own, everybody lives their life and goes on their own journey. But what I know for sure is that like, well, I'm fighting this cause. It's not just for me, it's not just for my mother, it's not just for the next of kin. I know that I'm doing it for global aviation safety. That is really the driving factor at this point because like I've said, I don't even know if I'll ever attain closure. I don't think that the search will go on forever in perpetuity, and but that's not the point. The point is that like we just should not accept that a plane the size of a Boeing 777 can be allowed to just vanish into thin air, and like that be an acceptable conclusion in this day and age. In this day and age where we have satellites in space that can detect a bottle cap on the surface of the ocean, what is everybody's excuse to allow a Boeing 777 to just remain one of the world's biggest mysteries?
Unbelievable. And Grace, are you the part of the MS370 families Facebook group?
Yeah.
You are. Okay. So if anyone wants to provide, like, follow the live updates or support the work you and the other members are doing, we'll encourage our audience to please follow the community page on Facebook. We have shared
Mhm.
the link to it in the description below. Uh, I mean, finding a plane in the vastness of ocean is a feat of engineering, but Grace, you have shown us today keeping a memory alive for over a decade is a feat of a human art. Um, we are all standing with you and the families as the search continues. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time for sharing your story with all of us. And we hope that closure comes soon enough for all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.